Trustee Fenton?
Here.
Trustee Dodge? Here. Trustee Calandrello?
Here.
Trustee Healy?
Here.
Trustee Katsinas?
Here.
Trustee Malani?
Here.
Mayor Pico?
Here.
Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of January 4th, 2021, regular meeting minutes.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Fenton.
move to approve the minutes of the Board of Trustees meeting of January 4th, 2021.
Second. Have any comments or changes? Call the roll.
Trustee Fenton?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Trustee Dodge?
Aye.
Trustee Calandrello?
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Mayor Pico?
Aye.
Joint Emergency Telephone System 911 Board appointment.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Malani.
I move to advise and consent the appointment of Mike Blaha, Interim Chief of Police from the Village of Orland Hills, to the Joint Emergency Telephone System 911 Board.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Trustee Calandrello?
Aye.
Trustee Fenton?
Aye.
Trustee Dodge?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Mayor Pico?
Aye.
Recreation Advisory Board appointment.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Katsinas.
I move to advise and consent the appointment of Kyle Kickert to the Recreation Advisory Board.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Trustee Fenton?
Aye.
Trustee Dodge?
Aye.
Trustee Calandrello?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Mayor Pico?
Aye.
Accounts payable from January 5th, 2021 to January 18th, 2021.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Healy.
I move to approve the accounts payable from January 5th, 2021 through January 18th, 2021 in the amount of $5,141,605.59.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Trustee Fenton?
Aye.
Trustee Dodge?
Aye.
Trustee Calandrello?
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Mayor Pico?
Aye.
Consent agenda.
Real quick, for our two reporters that are here, there is a table up here for you, and we can spread the chairs out for you, you both, so that way there's chairs for the folks that are standing in the back. Want to spread those out for them so they, so they can sit there? Thanks, Dermot. Consent agenda. Item A, payroll for January 8, 2021 approval. Item B, summer 2021 program lists approval. Item C, Parks Monument sign purchase approval. Item D, office and janitorial supply purchases, Suburban Purchasing Cooperative. Item E, disposal of decommissioned AEDs ordinance. Item F, AJZ Infinity Orland Park LLC Class 7C renewal resolution. Item G, Orland Fire Protection District Training Facility ordinance granting an amendment to a special use permit for a planned development with modification to the Land Development Code. Item H, Orland Fire Protection District Maintenance Building ordinance granting variances. Item I, Villas of Tallgrass Stormwater Improvement Agreement. I will entertain a motion to approve items A through I of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Trustee Fenton?
Aye.
Trustee Dodge?
Aye.
Trustee Calandrello?
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Mayor Pico?
Aye.
Annual Police Department Activity Update.
Chief Mitchell? Doesn't look like it's on. You hear it? Eric, there you go. The light just came on up there. There we go. All right, now you can go, Chief Mitchell.
Great. Mayor and the
Get your slideshow started.
village trustees, I'm here to report on the Orland Park Police Department 2020 statistics for the village of Orland Park. So here are our index crimes for 2020 versus 2019. We had 691 index crimes versus 974, which equates to a 29% decrease in amount of reported crime. Those crimes, can you go back to that, please? Those crimes are homicide, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, aggravated battery, burglary, theft, motor vehicle theft, arson, and human trafficking. Those are the type of crimes that we report both to the state and the FBI. Go ahead, next slide, please. So we had no criminal homicides in 2020. We had 1 in 2019. 0 rapes in 2020, 2 in 2019, 7 robberies each year, and our increase was in aggravated assault and aggravated batteries of 18, and we'll drill down into that momentarily. Go ahead to the next slide. So with the regional crime increasing, in particular Chicago, with a 50% increase in murders and shootings, the Orland Park Police Department reports we've had less violent crimes this year than we had in 2019, despite the pandemic and the unrest. Go ahead. Here's our property crimes broken down. We had 26 burglaries in 19, 13 in 2020. The primary driver of index crimes in Orland Park are thefts. We're at 625 versus 887. Our motor vehicle thefts were slightly higher at 28. We had no arsons. Go ahead.
Mayor Pico.
Trustee Dodge.
Just, Joe, could you go back one slide? Just, I think most people understand the difference between burglary and theft. Could you just describe those?
Sure. So it's a burglary is defined as a theft when you enter in a business or a residence or a building with the intent to commit a theft, okay? A retail theft or a theft is when you go in there and you have a decision to go ahead and commit a crime while inside there, by legal definition, layman's terms. Good there, Dan? Yep. All right, great. Go ahead, next slide, please. So here's our 5-year analysis for property crimes. We've gone down each and every year, and lo and behold, 666 is for 2020. 666.
Surprise.
How fitting for that number. Great, next slide, please. So index reporting crimes to 691 is the lowest, I repeat, the lowest in 26 years. COVID-driven, yes. However, not all COVID-driven, and we'll drill down shortly on that. Go ahead. So our burglaries at 13 are the lowest that I could find in the village of Orland Park. 13 burglaries, despite all the civil unrest that occurred in the Chicagoland area and nationally, 13 was the lowest that I could find, and that occurred. And I'll explain why. Our officers were at every location, every day, logging checks, making sure those businesses survived. Every single day. Go ahead, next slide, please. So here's the Orland Square area. Here's the perception versus reality, ladies and gentlemen. Orland Park Mall is one of the safest malls in the Chicagoland area, period. And here's some stats for you. Those are trend lines going downward from 2016 to 2020. We did have a slight uptick in crime in 2020 versus 2019. And the reason why was one department store in the mall was killing it. They had some great LP agents there, and they were nailing it. Our disorderly conducts.
And Joe, just to be clear, that one department store that you're talking about, they also, they sign on everyone they catch. They don't let them go.
Sign on everything. They are probably the elite of the elite, okay? Fantastic location there, very pro-police. They leave no stone unturned on that. So that's where we're at. Our disorderly conducts were the same. We had a slight uptick in batteries. Next slide, please. So here's our clearance rate. This is one of the reasons why we have such a low crime rate, is because we solve crimes, ladies and gentlemen. We solve crimes. 100% arrest rate for aggravated batteries. Our robbery was a little bit lower this year, and I'll tell you why. Because we had a robbery that occurred in 2020, but we made the arrest in 2021. So we can't count the arrest for 2020. We have to count the arrest in 2021. Make sense? Great. Now this is the national average, the Midwest average. We far exceed those averages for clearances. Next slide, please. Here's one of our threats. Here's one of our problems. Our motor vehicle threats. We've done a 9 p.m. routine. We have done post-its. Mike, you can attest to that. We have done lock it or lose it. We still are having problems with residents and people who come to town who fail to lock their vehicles, who leave their keys inside the car, okay? So we're gonna look at some different campaigns again this year to try to drive the point home, because unfortunately, these vehicles, ladies and gentlemen, are being used in other cities and committing crimes, violent crimes, homicides, aggravated vehicular hijackings, robberies, armed robberies. These are occurring with our stolen motor vehicles. And our 7 robberies that occurred in Orland Park in 2020, a stolen vehicle was used in that, okay?
How many of those 28 vehicle left with the keys in the car?
I would say, on average, well over 90%. We had a couple now with these Dodge vehicles. We can talk about that offline. That certain targets are looking at the vehicle. Certain suspects are looking at the vehicle because they have the ability to work the system there to get in there and activate it without a key.
Okay.
Next slide, please. Here's another concern for us. Since CCL was enacted in 2013, the Orland Park Police Department is seeing an increase in the number of firearms we're locating in vehicles. A lot of these are not CCL carried people. They're not in violation, but we're seeing more people carrying weapons. And that's just not in Orland Park, that is regionally. Okay? Next slide. Here's our calls for service. Up over 31%. My officers are busy. My obligated time is quite high, meaning that they're involved in handling calls rather than doing proactive stuff. And a lot of that reason is because we're doing some additional checks on our businesses, our premises, and stuff like that. So that's what's driving a lot of our call volume up. Next slide, please. So here's our citizen complaints. Our citizen complaints, 28 in 2020, the lowest in 5 years. Unbelievable, truthfully, with a bunch of hatred that's going on in law enforcement, okay, and the civil unrest. We had 5 sustained complaints. 2 of those were policy violations, and 3, unfortunately, were demeanor. Somebody got the best of the officer, and they yelled back or maybe swore at one point in time. But we're still under the national average for sustained complaints. National average is 20%. We're hovering right around 17.5% sustained. So I'll take that any day. Next one. Overwhelming. I get emotional thinking about how many people have reached out to us from law enforcement and told us how much they appreciate us. That is off the chart. 171 letters of appreciation coming from the community. Every day we get a letter or an email or a bag of cookies or a box of candy. So thank you very much for that. Next slide. And that's it. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a couple of questions, but first I want to say great work to you and the police department. All the men and women in the department do a fantastic job.
Sure.
4 years straight of lower crime. I know due to a lot of that's due to a proactive approach we've taken on some of these things.
Absolutely.
And even though we've seen car thefts go up, our proactive approach has reduced that significantly from what it would have been.
It has to do with that task force also.
Yeah. So how many of the people that we catch and arrest are ballpark? Are previous criminals?
Repeat offenders. In the criminal element, non-traffic, well over 80, 90%. of the people that we see that come through our lockup have been arrested criminally in the past.
Okay. And in your opinion, what's the biggest impediment to public safety success here in Orland Park?
The biggest impediment is truthfully one person, Kim Fox. Last year alone, she dismissed well over 25,000 felonies. These are not just cases that come to court. These are cases that are vetted by the Cook County State's Attorney's Office, felony review, and then outright dismissed. In 3 years, she dismissed it over 30% of all felony charges in 3 years. Where is the public outcry? Where is the accountability for people? That's our problem. There's repeat offenders.
Any other comments or questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Malani?
Chief, I know we've said up here many times that, we appreciate the hard work, the effort, and most importantly, the dedication of your department. And I think our department, they go above and beyond to protect our community, become involved with our community through all our different outreach programs. And we're also continuously adding new programs to protect and serve Orland Park, which is definitely in line with your mission. But, I've said it once, and I'll say it again, our department can only be as good as the leadership that it has. And, we've had a track record of great leadership, and you're heading in that direction as well. So, once again, thank you for all your work, and look forward to great things in the coming year. So thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Mayor Pico?
Trustee Dodge?
Joe, I just want to make, great numbers, right? So years of investing in a great police department are clearly paying dividends. I want to go back to you said we're below national averages on complaints and complaints abstained. So that tells me about the professionalism of our police force because, tell me if you agree with this, we're a regional shopping center. We get visitors from a lot of different places, and our engagements with the public, whether they're residents or non-residents, we're doing better than national averages, correct? Did I hear that right?
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
Anything else? The last thing I'll say is, so there's two emails I've gotten today that I think are telling. To Chief Mitchell's point, we had a robbery, attempted shoplift of a backpack full of liquor items. Manager got injured as a result of the fight when he tried to stop the guy. That person was then brought to, we took him into custody, but then we had to take him over to the hospital because he claimed he had chest pains. This is his fourth crime in Orland Park in the last 9 months, and all of them involved battering a store employee. So you think about those aggravated assaults. One guy, released over and over again. This is the problem. Imagine how much more safe we'd all be if we kept those people behind bars like they should be. Second, I get these every day, just about every day, so the numbers would show every other day, but had another email here from another citizen, just thankful for our officers being on the scene. They had an 89-year-old father with dementia that started to kind of lose control because of his dementia, and it was our officers that were there to help them calm down. And her mother was 82, and they're on the phone, and they're 30 miles away, and so it was our officers' ability to calm the situation that made everyone feel at ease and allowed these people to go on with their lives after that day. So thanks again for great work from your officers, and we all really appreciate it. The entire village does.
Thank you for your support and your continual support, and thank you to the village manager's office for always being there and assisting us what we need to do. So thank you.
HP server and nimble storage hyper-converged infrastructure.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Malani?
I move to approve the contract with Insight Public Sector Incorporated through the Omnia Partners Cooperative Purchase Contract for IT products and services number 4400006644 with work to be performed by MindSight for a not-to-exceed amount of $294,181.82 and to authorize the village manager to execute all related contracts subject to village attorney review.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Malani?
Just a quick question for staff. I saw the budget, the overage is over. It's $4,781 that we're increasing. Was that above and beyond the contingency they had set aside?
That was beyond the budgeted amount that we had budgeted in the 21 budget.
So
that was based on a quote we received in the fall, and Cisco and HP had price increases in 21.
Sure.
And so that's what's accounting for.
Yeah, I was just curious. So that also blew our contingency then. It was over, or did we not have a contingency fund for this project?
There wasn't a contingency
Okay.
budgeted for that, but
Okay. I'm just curious, because looking at plans like this when we know we're going into the next fiscal year, I mean, I've been dealing with software for years, and usually what happens is, you're going in for a $100 software product, and next year it's going to be $105. So I don't know if there's a way we can kind of, if we know we're going into the next year, kind of say, okay, we know we're going to see an inflamed number next year. Maybe we just add a little bit more in, so that way we don't have to change our numbers when we bring it to the board and try to find the funding elsewhere.
we will definitely look into doing that moving forward.
And then this, we have a lot of IT projects happening this year, so we're confident that we're going to find the savings somewhere else to offset this.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to all the projects. It's great, but I just wanted to kind of bring that up as a possible idea as we budget for coming years.
Any other comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Trustee Caldarello?
Aye.
Trustee Fenton?
Aye.
Trustee Dodge?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Mayor Pico?
Aye.
Water main valve exercising.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Fenton.
move to approve the proposal from Water Main Valve Exercising from M.E. Simpson Company Incorporated, Valparaiso, Indiana, for an amount not to exceed $61,950 in the 2021, and board-approved budget amounts in 22 and 23.
Second.
The only thing I'll say to this is that there's only one bidder, but they're the only ones that do this by hand, and they avoid damaging our equipment when they do it by hand. I see Joel nodding back there, so that's why that's the case, but it's basically in line with their previous pricing from previous years. I think it's only like $900 higher than 3 years ago. So, anybody else have any comments or questions? Call the roll.
Trustee Fenton?
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Trustee Dodge?
Aye.
Trustee Caldarello?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Mayor Pico?
Aye.
Tree chipper purchase and delivery.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Fenton.
move to approve utilizing Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Contract Number 050119-MBI to award the purchase and delivery of one 2021 Mobark Eager Beaver 2131 SA to Mobark LLC of Wynn, Michigan, for the amount not to exceed $88,774.70.
Second.
And I'll comment on this one since I'm well qualified to comment on tree chippers. This one's 20 years old, so it's time for replacement. These are not cheap machines, but they do last a very long time. And I actually checked, there's only one real supplier of Moorbark in this area. They're the only one, and that's Alexander. I did check. It's a fair price based on all the information that I could get on it. And Alexander's usually pretty fair on their pricing as well. And it's a good machine for what we do. Over 20-inch intake plus 175 horsepower, which is good. We don't need a monster machine because we don't do trees that big, but bigger than what we had before. So it'll be a little bit easier on the engine and on the machine that way. So, any other comments or questions? Call the roll.
Trustee Fenton?
Aye.
Trustee Caldarello?
Aye.
Trustee Dodge?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Mayor Pico?
Aye.
Main Street Triangle parking structure, electric vehicle charging stations.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Healy.
I move to approve the proposal of ChargePoint Incorporated of Campbell, California for service and maintenance of EV stations located in the Main Street Triangle parking structure in the amount not to exceed $6,187. And I move to approve the village collect electric vehicle charging fees at $1 per hour from users of the EV stations located in the Main Street Triangle parking structure.
Second.
Any questions or comments on this? So one of the things that I learned, I don't think anyone on this board knew this, is that, so we pay for our electricity over there, we pay for these machines, so we should not be subsidizing the people who are charging their machines on that, but taxpayers shouldn't be subsidizing that. So this $1, it's going to cover all of our electricity costs and our cost for the machines?
That's correct.
Mr. Chairman, we have a brief presentation. We can show you what the costs are if you're okay with that.
Sure.
So the parking structure was built about 5 years ago, and we have 2 electric vehicle charging stations there. They're Type 2s. Type 2s are the most common that are used. Type 1 is what people install at their homes, and Type 3 are the one that provide a quick charge, which is much more expensive. Our current vendor, which manufactured the equipment, is ChargePoint, and charging services are at no cost to the users. The last 5 years since the garage was built, we have incurred a cost of about $15,000, which include the first cost, the maintenance cost, as well as the electric cost. This is just a quick picture of, this is located on the first floor of the parking structure. The contract has expired, and the ChargePoint is asking about $6,000 for 5 years of maintenance and cloud services. That does not include electric charges. So we're recommending that we accept their proposal, and this will allow us to have 5 years of maintenance as well as 5 years of cloud services, which will allow us to collect fees if we choose to. So we did a quick survey, and in the 15-mile radius from Orland Park, the costs are from no charge to about $1.50 per hour. And typically, a car takes about 70 cents to about 95 cents to charge per hour for a car. Typically, a Tesla is an example. So we're not recovering our capital cost, as well as we're not recovering our maintenance cost. We're recommending $1 an hour charge that will generate about $2,000 per year, but that is not our full cost of recovery. If we need to accomplish that, then we will be exceeding the market that currently we have around us. So that's where we need your direction. ChargePoint will collect the fee, but they'll also charge a 10% service charge on top of that. So that's our presentation.
Any comments?
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Fenton.
So we're charging $1 to get 2,000, but then they're going to take 10% of that?
Correct.
And at the 2,000, we're not even covering our costs, and now we're going to get 200 less than that, so $1,800.
$1,800. The concern we have, Trustee Fenton, is that if we go above market, I don't know, or I can't tell if the usage will go down, and then we'll still have a loss of revenue in that regard.
Just wondering.
I guess my position would be, let's start with $1 an hour and see what happens with our usage, and then we can always change that going forward. If we see that we're getting good usage out of it, we can creep that upwards to try and cover our costs, because ultimately we're providing that station for a convenience. It shouldn't be up to all of the taxpayers. No one's paying their gas tax, so we shouldn't be paying for their charge either. So
Plus, the parking is free.
correct. Okay, call the roll.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Trustee Fenton?
Aye.
Trustee Dodge?
Aye.
Trustee Calandrella?
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Mayor Pico?
Aye.
143rd Street Signal Interconnect RFQ Phase 3 Construction Engineering Services Consultant Recommendation.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Healy.
I move to approve the proposal on professional fees from DLZ Illinois, Inc. for the 143rd Street Signal Interconnect Phase 3 Construction Engineering Services in the amount not to exceed $56,719.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Looks like you have something else you want to present.
Yep. So, Mr. Mayor, in 2019, we received $540,000 in response to our application for funds. As we all have been trying to get construction funding for the 143rd widening, but we were looking how else we can do to improve the traffic flow on 143rd Street. This was one way. So we found $540,000 at 80-20 split with us. And in 2020, the village retained Civil Tech at our own cost to complete Phase 2 engineering for the project. The Phase 2 is complete now, and then we're moving forward to have the construction done this year. So the purpose of the project, like I said, is it will connect 7 signals from Wolf Road to LaGrange Road. There are 7 signals in this area that will be connected, and that will allow us a better traffic flow as well as reduce delays and congestion. Hopefully, it will improve some safety as well. The construction cost of this improvement is about $350,000. Even though we received $540,000, we tried to add a few more elements into the project, but IDOT did not approve it because they were not qualified expenses, so we stayed at $350,000 at an 80-20 split. So we followed IDOT's policy of what's called quality-based selection, which requires to collect RFQs only on qualifications, and no professional fees were collected. And then we received 7 consultants. We narrowed the top three firms, and of that, DLZ was at the top ranked firm, and we negotiated a fee with DLZ at $56,719, and we're recommending that this fee be accepted.
Is that it?
That's it.
Any other questions? Call the roll.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Trustee Fenton?
Aye.
Trustee Dodge?
Aye.
Trustee Calandrello?
Aye.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Mayor Pico?
Aye.
Interim Assistant Director of Recreation and Parks.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Katsinas.
I move to approve a contract with Government Temps USA for an interim assistant director of Parks and Recreation for fiscal year 2021 and authorize the village manager to execute the same.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Trustee Fenton?
Aye.
Trustee Dodge?
Aye.
Trustee Calandrello?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Mayor Pico?
Aye.
Ordinance authorizing the development of a financing plan for general obligation bonds, Series 2021A, and taxable general obligation refunding bonds, Series 2021B.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Healy.
John, could I have an ordinance number, please?
5582.
I move to approve ordinance number 5582 entitled Ordinance Authorizing the Development of a Financing Plan for General Obligation Bonds, Series 2021A, and Taxable General Obligation Refunding Bonds, Series 2021B.
Second.
And the next series of, so there's 3 of these altogether, George. These are all to approve what we've talked about in the budget meetings and everything else about the financing plan going forward. And
That's
we were
correct.
briefed on, correct?
Correct. It's part of the budget, and they're all related.
Any questions or comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Trustee Fenton?
Aye.
Trustee Dodge?
Aye.
Trustee Calandrello?
Aye.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Mayor Pico?
Aye.
Resolution adopting a debt management policy and post-issuance compliance policy for tax-exempt governmental bonds.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Healy.
John, it's 5583, John?
Yeah, 2104.
2104. I move to approve resolution number 2104 entitled Resolution Adopting a Debt Management Policy and Post-Issuance Compliance Policy for Tax-Exempt Governmental Bonds.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Mayor Pico?
Trustee Dodge.
George, if you were Director of Finance, if you could, a little bit of background about what this is accomplishing. I have a couple of specific questions, too.
Sure. I'll just chime in, and then Kevin can chime in. These are 2 separate policies. The first one, the debt management policy, when Standard & Poor's did their last evaluation for the village, this was something that was called out as not having a debt management policy. The second one is is just a requirement by law, the post-issuance compliance policy. Our bond counsel, Chapman and Cutler, developed this policy.
Okay. My follow-on questions. So, Standard & Poor's called it out as something we should have, but basically, it seems to me we've been in compliance with this for a long time. They're just adding it to the list of what they'd prefer, correct?
Right, yep. They just want, just with all risk mitigations, they just want to make sure that we have a policy and we're following the policy.
No, makes total sense. We've got a great bond rating, so let's do that. So I guess, on the first page, can you explain what number 3 means? I'm pretty sure I understand. I just want to hear you articulate what 3 accomplishes.
So the overall goal of the debt management policy, first what it does is it sets into place the parameters. It says we will use debt for long-term capital items. And so what this one is saying is whatever debt capacity that we're going to utilize will be relative to our population and tax base.
which, makes broad sense. I guess highest priorities for the issuance of Village Capital Improvement Program makes sense. That's what we've always done. This does not, because I think it's elsewhere, we're not using debt for operating expenses generally defined, correct?
As a matter of fact, that's what this policy specifically says, that it's for guidelines, it's for capital projects and infrastructures.
Okay, no, I thought so. We're codifying the 8%, even though we're a home rule. I don't think we've ever exceeded 8%, but we're codifying 8% as the limit on page 3.
That's right. If we were a non-home rule PTEL community, you're subject to an 8.25% debt capacity. Even though we're home rule and we can exceed that, what we do is we're self-imposing that. We're nowhere close to that, but what this shows the rating agencies is a self-discipline.
Got it. And then just briefly, the practical implication of conduit financing, we're not liable. So if we're assisting with a conduit financing, that does not accrue to the Village of Orland Park as a liability. Is that correct?
I think technically it doesn't, and we have Bob Lewis is here. I think technically, Bob Lewis is with PMA Securities. He's our financial advisor. Conduit financing could be TIF bond, right?
Yeah, or it's some sort of project, like it could be a hospital or various types of industries that qualify for conduit financing, but those are set up so that they're basically just using you in order to tap the tax-exempt market, and you'd have no liability attached with doing the financing.
Okay, I guess my question then is the village has no liability or responsibility for repayment of the debt authorized under these statutes.
That's correct.
So if we go help a hospital,
Right.
and they want to access the capital markets and they need $100 million, we're assisting with that, but it's not $100 million of Orland Park debt, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Just like we're just a conduit for that.
No, just making sure. I mean, TIF financing is TIF financing. Just wanted to make sure I understood the puts and takes and it was on the record about conduit financing. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions or comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Fenton.
Aye.
Trustee Dodge.
Aye.
Trustee Calandrello.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
An ordinance providing for the issuance of not to exceed $40 million general obligation bonds, Series 2021A, and $8,500,000 taxable general obligation refunding bonds, Series 2021B.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead. Trustee Healy.
I move to, or can I have an ordinance number, John?
5583.
I move to approve ordinance number 5583 entitled, "An Ordinance Providing for the Issuance of Not to Exceed $40 Million General Obligation Bonds, Series 2021A, and $8,500,000 Taxable General Obligation Refunding Bonds, Series 2021B, of the Village of Orland Park, Cook, and Will Counties, Illinois, for the purpose of financing various capital improvements and refunding certain outstanding obligations of the village, providing for the levy and collection of a direct annual tax sufficient for the payment of the principal of and interest on said bonds, providing for the sale of said bonds in the to the purchasers thereof, and authorizing the execution of an escrow agreement in the connection therewith."
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Mayor Pico?
Trustee Dodge.
George, this a refinancing operation to take advantage of historically low rates and do a number of things, but it's, I think that number is going to catch some attention, but this is basically us being smart financially, taking advantage of low rates and restructuring our finances.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Calendrell?
Aye.
Trustee Fenton?
Aye.
Trustee Dodge?
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Mayor Pico?
Aye.
Resolution supporting law enforcement agencies and our members who serve our communities, disapproving of efforts to delegitimize the law enforcement profession, reducing municipal authority, prioritizing criminals over the safety of law-abiding citizens and police officers, and calling on Governor J.B. Pritzker to veto House Bill 3653.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Malani.
I move to recommend to the Village Board to pass a resolution number 2105 entitled Resolution Supporting Law Enforcement Agencies and Their Members Who Serve Our Communities, disapproving of efforts to delegitimize, easy for me to say, delegitimize the law enforcement profession, reducing municipal authority, prioritizing criminals over the safety of law-abiding citizens and police officers, and calling on Governor J.B. Pritzker to veto House Bill 3653.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Trustee Malani.
As we said earlier, we have the very best when it comes to law enforcement, but their job just became more difficult after passing this bill. The state, in its infinite wisdom in law enforcement, has quickly decided to make the career of a police officer more dangerous while making the career of a criminal easier than ever. As I mentioned earlier, our department goes above and beyond to protect our community, to be involved with our community through outreach programs and continuously add new programs to protect and serve Orland Park. This bill laughs in the faces of our officers that provide those services. While it's great that Orland Park has been proactive with our decisions like body camera pilot programs, mental health service partnerships, and an extensive community outreach plan, this bill places extra strain on the system while providing criminals with more flexibility and privilege. I hope our state steps back and reviews the situation and reconsider. Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to be the case.
Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Healy.
I think that House Bill 3653 is a exercise in insanity. It is just stupid to handcuff the police who have been doing a great job, and it just makes no sense to me. I wish that everyone would consult the people, look on their own and find out if their representative voted for it or against it. I know my Representative Slaughter, I don't know if he probably isn't too sure where Orland Park is on the map, in my opinion, but he voted for this bill, which part of the city of Chicago, I just still can't fathom if you're part of the city or not. There's no reason to vote for this bill. And the Senate side, Senator Hastings voted for it too, is my understanding. But I hope everybody consults their, look for your own to see who voted for it and against it. And then consider how the safety of your family, the safety of your community, as you consider who your representative down in Springfield is.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Fenton.
Just for the record, I want to make it very clear that I am 100% behind Orland Park Police Department and all the police departments in the state of Illinois and in this nation. However, I do have an issue with Section 3 and then the verbiage in the opening title of this resolution that pertains to references to Section 3. So I would like to make an amendment to delete Section 3 of the resolution and delete the corresponding verbiage that is in the title of the resolution.
Was that a motion? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Second.
So a motion to delete Section 3, and which resolves to oppose any efforts to prioritize criminals over the safety of law-abiding citizens, police officers, and wants that same language struck from the ordinance in the title.
It's in the resolution, yes, because I just feel it's just a fire into the flame, or creating more of an issue. I totally agree with what they did was wrong, but I just don't like that verbiage in here. I'd vote for everything else but that.
Any comments on the amendment?
Mayor Pico?
Trustee Dodge.
Just broadly, I certainly support law enforcement. I think it's time in our country that we take a look at reform, real reform that solves the problems as opposed to what this bill seems to try and do. I don't like the bill, and there's a few things in this particular resolution that I wouldn't mind if we adjusted the language. In fact, I was going to propose...
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
Trustee Malani?
This has nothing to do with the posed question.
Trustee Dodge, keep your comments to the amendment itself, and if you have another amendment you'd like to make, then you can make that after this amendment is discussed.
Sure. I think the language in the resolution doesn't help solve the problem. Therefore, I'll vote for this amendment.
Any other comments? Okay, call the roll. And just to be clear, this is amending this to strike out Section 3 and to strike the same language that's in the title.
Trustee Fenton?
Aye.
Trustee Dodge?
Aye.
Trustee Calangelo?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
No.
Trustee Katsinas?
No.
Trustee Malani?
No.
Mayor Pico?
No, the amendment fails.
Mayor Peacock.
Trustee Dodge?
I'd like to offer an amendment, which would be adopt the ordinance striking all language other than Section 4, so it reads simply, Village President and the Board of Trustees of the Village of Orland Park further resolve to call on Governor J.B. Pritzker to veto House Bill 3653. I'd like that resolution to also add and ask the legislature to address supporting our law enforcement and reform properly, not the way they've done 3653.
Second.
So Trustee Dodge would like to strike the entire thing except for Section 4, which reads, the village president and the board of trustees of the Village of Orland Park further resolve to call on J.B. Pritzker to veto House Bill 3653, and would like also to, in that, to ask the legislature to address this properly and not the way they've done in 3653.
Thank you.
Which makes it about 4 sentences long with no whereases and no title. Any comments on the amendment?
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Healy.
We have to, as a community, stand up and give voice to what the people think and believe and need. And we have to address all these considerations. This is, I have no problem pushing back on the governor, pushing and letting them know exactly how we feel, and not to dance around the subject, but you have to start, if you want to retain your rights, if we have any left at the end of the week or whatever, you have to push back, and I personally, I don't think it's aggressive enough, but I can live with this. Thank you.
Any other comments? So call the roll on the amendment, which essentially strikes the entire thing except Section 4 and adds the verbiage regarding the legislature.
Trustee Dodge?
Aye.
Trustee Fenton?
Aye.
Trustee Calangelo?
No.
Trustee Healy?
No.
Trustee Katsinas?
No.
Trustee Malani?
No?
Mayor Pico?
No. Motion fails 5-2. Any other comments on this resolution?
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Malani?
I'd like to make a motion to amend, adding the verbiage to Section 4, as Trustee Dodge mentioned, ask legislator to address this properly, unlike they did with House Bill 3653.
Second.
So we have an amendment to Section 4 to ask the legislature to address this properly, unlike how they addressed HB 3653.
Correct.
Any comments on this? On the amendment to add that the legislature to address properly this bill, unlike how they addressed 3653 to section 4. Call the roll.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Trustee Dodge?
Aye.
Trustee Fenton?
Aye.
Trustee Calandrella?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Mayor Pico?
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Any other comments on this resolution?
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Calandrella.
I just want to add a couple of comments. I support the police department fully. I think the Orland Park Police Department, I don't want to echo everyone else, but that's why I didn't make a comment during the chief's presentation. But they are the gem of Illinois. They're the best police department in the nation, in my opinion. I've worked with them hand in hand, putting people away. I just want to say that some things that we do that need to be duplicated, I think need to be addressed. I think they're trying to address this in Springfield, is helping mental health, which we've been doing for the last, since I've been around 8 years, through forums, through getting people the help they need, because it's not the criminal justice system to help mental health illnesses. It's the professionals, the doctors. Community policing and then training. So I think we do all those things great, and that's one of the things that maybe they're trying to help in Springfield, but I just couldn't, this is the way it happened, I don't support it. So I support this, I support the police department and all the police departments around. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Who's that? Trustee Dodge.
Just let me be fairly bold in this statement. I think if it was possible to have more communities in Orland Park have a police department as good as ours, we wouldn't be having this discussion this evening. And so three comments. One, and I'll say it loud and proud, I think law enforcement generally needs more support, not less support from our society. But it's also clear to me that reform broadly is needed in this space, and that could take many forms, but it needs to be collaborative and thoughtful as opposed to doing something rushed where who knows what the unintended consequences are. And then I've said these kind of things before up on this board floor. Quite frankly, shame on Springfield that such an enormously sensitive and enormously important social topic is handled the way they handled it, especially on this day of all days, Martin Luther King Day. So again, shame on Springfield for the way they've done it. Healthy dialogue, fact-based, data-driven, solving the problem, sure. Please start doing your job. This is a mess.
Any other comments? So I'll close before voting on the amended resolution. Just as any layperson knows that a bill that goes in front of a legislative body like this with this many members is garbage, when they change the bill number from one bill number to another, and then bypass committee, so it eliminated 20,000 witness slips against it. Just, they're gone, okay? Then they moved it to the Senate first, even though it's a House bill. Then they did it in the middle of the night at 3:45 a.m. 764-page document, voted on 1 hour later. Not one stakeholder was included in any of this. Not the police, not the municipalities that have to actually deal with policing, not these state legislators really care, but we have to deal with all of that. All the unfunded mandates that are in here, the bypassing of our authority. So here's just some of the stuff that's in there, and I agree with the last comments of Trustee Dodge and Trustee Calandrella completely. Yes, there are some things in here, and I think Chief Mitchell would say there's some things in this bill that are good and would be worth keeping. But in 764 pages of 100 and some different things that they're requiring people to do, I mean, it's 90% of it is bad. And it's bad because it's so big and it wasn't addressed with the stakeholders like it should have been. It abolishes monetary bail. It doesn't reform it, it ends it. It also, at the same time, it limits electronic monitoring. That's a nice combination. Get rid of monetary bail and get rid of electronic monitoring. Just let everyone run free. What did we just talk about? 4 batteries from the same guy in 9 months? We've been trying this in Chicago. Hasn't worked very well, has it, Chief? Here's one that should scare everyone. It is presumed that the defendant is entitled to release on personal recognizance. They're entitled to be released on personal recognizance. John Wayne Gacy, Jeffrey Dahmer, entitled to release on personal recognizance. Are you? I can't even, to Trustee Healy's point, I can't even imagine the insanity of something like that. A Class 3 felony for an officer not turning on a body camera? Let me give you a little example, and Chief, if I'm off base with this example, let me know. But how about an officer goes in to get a Coke in a 7-Eleven, and suddenly someone walks in, there's an armed robbery in progress, and the officer does what the officer should and stops the robbery, but somehow, because he was buying a Coke and not responding to a call, forgets to hit the body camera and turns it on. It's a Class 3 felony? That's nuts. Anyone as someone who flew a high-performance airplane and knows a little bit about, high energy, high stress situations, when your habit pattern gets interrupted at all, you will skip that in a heartbeat. And that could be something as simple as getting out of your car for a motor vehicle ticket, and someone almost hits you with their car, and then you forget to turn it on. Could that happen really easily, Chief? Yeah. So anything that does that, so that's crazy. This bypasses municipal authority. The state is now the judge on officer complaints because the state's so good at everything else it does. We want to put our officers in that position. Complaints, here's one. Complaints are anonymous. First off, I don't think this is going to pass the Supreme Court because it violates the Sixth Amendment right to face an accuser. And I'm not an attorney, but I think our attorney here would probably tell you that that's accurate. What happened to those legislatures' oath to support the Constitution of the United States? Gone, out the window. Well, the governor should take his oath seriously, and he should veto this bill. Call the roll of the amended resolution.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Trustee Gattinis?
Aye.
Trustee Fenton?
Aye.
Trustee Dodge?
Aye.
Trustee Calandrella?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Mayor Peacock?
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Chief, and I speak for all of us on the board here. We have your officers' backs, and we will keep fighting for you.
Agenda initiative, independent investigation of single-family homes purchased and sold by the village.
So here we have an item for discussion that Trustee Malani brought forth. There was some information brought the last time, a little bit of information. There's more information now, and I'll open it up for discussion.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Malani, since you brought it.
Yeah, thank you. At the last meeting, I asked for more information on all the single-family homes that were purchased and/or sold by the village. Well, it looks like I have information for 5 of them. And I also asked to see all of the properties, so I think we can save that for another time. Maybe we can discuss what we want to do with that, because I'm just afraid what else we might find. So I'd like to talk about that at another time. And thank you for everybody that submitted additional questions and comments throughout this, that provided additional information. Made it a really exciting weekend to kind of wade through all that, and so thank you very much. But after digesting this information, my observations were from when the village purchased these properties from 2004 to the beginning of 2016. Here are some of the things that I found. 3 of the 5 were purchased for over the appraised value. 4 of the 5 properties were not in a flood zone, and the 1 property that was had a 1% chance of flooding. The village paid for closing costs on 2 of the 5 homes. Village did no improvements on these homes, other than the ones where we removed existing homes and paid for caissons, which I'll soon explain why. The village eventually sold 3 of these properties, and we have no offer letters on record for any of them. The most recent property, purchased in 2016, was 14403 Irving, and was the only one that was in a flood zone, with the one with 1% chance of flooding. It was purchased for $30,000 over the appraisal, after the board said they would not pay above the appraisal price, and there seemed to be a push by the former mayor for an even higher price on more than one occasion. 10 feet of the property was sold to their neighbor for $11,000, for which the village currently can't find the record of the actual sale or the receipt. The property at 15160 Royal Fox Hunt was purchased in 2004 for $310,000 at the appraisal price. The village installed swales, but then did nothing to the house prior to selling it. When the village sold this property, it was sold for $55,000 less than what the village purchased it for. The next property, 14610 Westwood, was purchased for slightly below the appraised value. This is the property that started all of this research that we're doing here today, because the village recently received what appeared to be a very low offer. The price that was offered included a contingency that the village pay for caissons required to build a house. The offer was $105,000, and that in itself was fine, but then seems ridiculous to pay for the caissons, which was previously estimated at $42,000 for another property at 14620 Westwood. And then the house was removed after a recommendation by Seabell, which is Christopher Burke Engineering, in 2007. So it seems that study should have been done prior to purchasing the property. And then the board was recently informed that this was the same price that was paid to the village for the property next door, which is my next one, 14620 Westwood, which was purchased for the appraised value of $325,000 in 2005. The seller was allowed to live in the house for 1 year, rent-free, and the village paid all of the closing costs, even though the reason to purchase the house was once again flood relief. The house was eventually removed, and the lot was sold in 2013, and the lot sold for $105,000, which seems to also be okay. However, we just got the receipt right before the meeting here today for that. And that confirms that, yes, it was $41,950 to pay for caissons. But there were some other permit fees and a garage that had some issues with it. So there was a total reimbursement of $37,803. But then there was also some estimates for foundation work of $56,000, which exceeded the cap for this project. So upon hearing this, Trustee Katsinas raised concerns and asked for a list of properties purchased and sold in the last 30 years. And that's how that got us here today, just by asking some questions. So if we look at both Westwood lots, they were appraised at $163,000 in 2009 and put up for sale, which also brings back the fact that paying $42,000 for caissons for these properties is ridiculous. I also found it interesting that there were several flood studies performed regarding Tuckaway subdivision, where these two properties were located. The flood project was done in 2003, and it indicated that a new sewer pipe was to be installed down Westwood, but nothing was mentioned in this flood study about buying the properties. The project was then completed in 2007. Prior to purchasing the homes, the opinion was that removing the homes would not fix the flood problems, only a sewer system would. So why do we purchase these homes? Also, why do we purchase those two homes and only those two homes on that block in 2005? Makes no sense to me. So then we get to the property 15155 Windsor, which we heard about at length at the last board meeting. This property had 3 appraisals in successive months and was ultimately purchased for the price of the final appraisal. To be honest, I don't think I've ever seen a purchaser of a home shop for a higher appraisal price before. The village paid the closing cost and over $2,000 of moving costs, which was about $1,200 more than anybody else received for moving costs. Interestingly, after hearing this story last week, none of the 3 appraisals indicated any flooding issues on the property. Additionally, the basement was finished in 2003, which was interesting since we heard so much about the ongoing flooding problems. There were no problems noted with the basement in any of the 3 appraisals. The village then installed a swale and did no work to the home. So why did we purchase this home? The property is the only one that had an appraisal associated with its sale. It was appraised at $380,000. And then the village sold it for $55,000 less than the appraisal price and $85,000 less than the original purchase price. And unfortunately, there are very few executive session minutes discussed about the purchase of this home, which also seemed concerning. So to tie all of this together, I'd like to bring up that in 2007, CBEL looked at all 4 homes and suggested that the Westwood homes be removed, as it would cost $100,000 to $200,000 each to flood-proof them. It was then stated that the improvements worked and that any flood remediation on homes at Fox Hunt and Windsor would also be minimal. So if Windsor and Fox Hunt had no work done on the houses themselves, why would we purchase the properties? Looking at the costs, $100,000 to $200,000 to flood-proof would be a lot less costly alternative to the costs we have paid for the purchase and demolition of homes, less the price we receive for the lots. And as I mentioned earlier, if we look at this type of analysis, this flood analysis should be completed before we decide to purchase any property, not afterwards and we're trying to sell it. My biggest concern is, why didn't we? So all of this leads me with several more questions, and I'm not sure if we'll be able to get all the answers, but George, I'm going to leave that up to you and staff to see if we can make this happen. So number one, why would the village pay over appraisal price for any home? How is that all in the public and taxpayers' interest? Why did the village pay all closing costs for 2 homes and not for the other 3? We apparently posted notice in the newspapers and sealed bid these homes, but our records are less than clear during this entire process. Why aren't they? Why does the village have no record of any offer letters? Are these some type of secret deal we had going on? Because that's what they appear to be. Why did the village appraisal shop and then agree to pay a higher appraisal price on one property? Why was someone allowed to live in one of the houses rent-free for 1 year, especially if the reason was flood relief? Why did the village pay moving costs for just 1 home, or any of the homes for that matter? Why were these purchased for flood relief, yet only one of the homes indicates it's in a flood zone or had a flooding problem? This is very suspicious to me at this point. Why did the village buy these homes and not many of the others in town? For instance, like the Fernway subdivision, that the flooding was so bad in 1996 that ESDA, the police department, and the fire department were taking people out of there in rowboats for 4 days straight. How is that good public policy? How is this good public policy? It's inconsistent. If the village is going to buy properties for this reason, there should be a consistent process. And clearly, if you listen to this information, this process is anything but. Fixing flooding is in the public interest. For example, in Fernway, like I just mentioned, where we continue to mitigate the flooding, the drainage, and all of the street problems they have there today. But buying homes and properties is clearly not in the public interest. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Mayor Pico?
Trustee Dodge.
George, as you continue to dig for the records that I'm sure are somewhere in the village, definitely overlay what was happening to housing values during this time period, not the least of which was to a global financial meltdown. And then also verify when whatever entity it is, IDNR, Army Corps, whatever alphabet the federal agencies are operating under, as to whether or not the homes near Village Square were actually shown in a floodplain map when in fact they were sitting at the bowl of a 100+ acre natural depression, and the pond and the pipe to get the water out of that pond and away from those subdivisions needed to be completely fixed, which is where that, $1.5 million project came from, to put a really big pipe under 151st Street over to Tinley Creek. Just make sure all that's there as well. Thanks, George.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Fenton.
I just want to know why, when I go to the Dropbox, all the documents that I see look like they came from the 1800s. They're total blurs. You can't read anything except one document, which lists all the properties that were sold from whatever years they asked for.
Once you click on the document, you should be able to read it just fine. It looks that way in the Dropbox, but once you click it and open it, it looks fine.
What was it?
Has anybody else had any problems with the Dropbox?
No.
It's also on our website now.
Okay. Well, I went there too and didn't get it, but that's because of this, so.
Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Calandrello.
with all respect to one of my fellow trustees, don't pick and choose facts, say the whole thing. The comment was made that there wasn't an engineering firm or presentation done before the homes, we're talking about the 4 homes, were done in the Village Square and Tuckaway. They were done, that's a fact, Mike. Additionally, there was appraisals done, and in one of the information we have, which I want to vote for releasing the executive minutes today for all these properties, it talks that the assistant village manager at that time said that there was an error in the first appraisal from the village. So again, it's clear, there was an engineering report done before any of those homes were purchased. There was appraisals done. There was legal representation by the board that we still have, Kleinthorpe Jenkins, and maybe we need Ken Fricker to come back to refresh some of the memory of the board, is it talked about what the liability was, because the village cost of flooding, what would happen if someone got hurt or died like that. More importantly, what was the cost of litigation of that? So I think you need to talk about all the facts and stories. And again, I'm not going to go into, this is a political punishment, a threat that was made, and now it's coming to roost because one of those houses were owned by my family members when I was 9 years old.
Mr. Chairman, point of order. Trustee Calandrello is trying to infuse modem into my conversation where I'm clearly laying out what I find as the facts.
Your point of order is well taken. Don't assume his motive.
So facts are stubborn things, and you need to know all the facts, and that's what those facts show. It shows there's engineering before and after. Also, the facts, someone mentioned on this board that the facts was that just a sway was done on the property, but we forgot about the $1.5 million of public investment of the sewer lines and the expansion of the pond. So again, here's half the story, but the full story shows a picture. So, I hope sooner or later this will get out of your system. Maybe after a couple of months, we'll be done investigating. Here's another question, George. How much staff time has been used on this? I would like to know the hours. And then give me how much money that would cost. So if someone made $40,000 a year, divide them, then I want to know how much that cost. So we can get over this investigation when I was 9 years old. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Katsinas.
Mr. Mayor, the questions that were asked by Trustee Milani are very good ones. I've been in the real estate business for over 30 years, and I haven't seen deals like this previously. It appears that the village has been paying overappraised value, seeking multiple appraisals being obtained, paying for all closing costs, including title and survey, the village paying back taxes, free rent, and in one case, Trustee Milani alluded to, the folks stayed in a year after closing in a hazardous property and not receiving any additional offers in some of the drop boxes that we have received from George. What started this, as Trustee Milani alluded to, an offer was received in December of 2020 on the remaining Westwood lot. As previously stated, 2 Westwood properties were part of the 4 homes purchased by the village. The Westwood homes were demolished, and one of those lots was sold to the neighbor of former Mayor McLaughlin. And a new home was constructed by Overton Enterprises. Unusual concessions were requested in the December 2020 offer that were reportedly given and proved to be given on the prior sale of the second Westwood lot. So if I could just pass this out really quick, Mike, if you could take one. So I took Trustee Calandrello's advice and I decided to do my own research since this is my business and I know it pretty well. I drove by a home that I knew Overton Enterprises had built and researched the address. If you notice on page 1, taken off the Cook County Clerk's website, it shows that the property was owned by the Village of Orland Park and it was sold in 2012. I question why this property was not shown on the spreadsheet that we all received of all properties purchased and sold by Orland Park in the last 30 years. That was not on our list. The property was not shown in a public real estate database of sold properties that it was on the open market. If you look at page 2 and 3, it shows this property on 144th. It shows that this property, along with 2 other parcels, were gifted to the village of Orland Park by one of our founding fathers, John Humphrey. So it shows the 3 parcels. 2 of those parcels come back to the Humphrey home that is standing now. As I was driving down Beacon Avenue, I noticed a small sign for sale on a vacant lot by the same builder, Overton Enterprises. I did research on this property, and here's where it gets very interesting. Page 4. In 2011, from the village records, the owner received an approval from the village for a high-density lot with very little parking, which seems strange to me. With such limited parking, where were the occupants going to park? Across the street at the the Orland Park Museum, the old police station? In December of 2015, which page 4 reflects, this property was purchased and placed into a trust called Chicago Trust Co. If you notice, it shows an April date. Keep in mind that is the actual recording date, where the sale date was December of 2015, usually referred to as the execution date. On page 5, it shows that the attorney representing the buyer in this 2015 purchase was former trustee Mike Carroll. Ownership, according to the Cook County Recorder of Deeds, has not changed since this deed was recorded. Again, purchase in December, recorded December of 2015, recorded on the Cook County Recorder of websites, April of 2016. So I went a little further and I decided to check the tax records on this property. On page 6 through 8, it shows that the owner who has been receiving the tax bills and presumably paying the tax bills since 2016 is former Mayor Dan McLaughlin. Additionally, on page 9 shows the P.O. box on the tax bill is the same one used for his political campaign, Citizens for Dan McLaughlin. By the way, the tax bill, we have one that's due March 1st that clearly shows his name in the P.O. box. Furthermore, I asked the village manager for any permits on 14332 Beacon, and I found the following. Page 10 shows that in 2016, a permit to demolish the house on the property was obtained and clearly lists former Mayor Daniel McLaughlin as the owner. That's page 10. Page 11 through 14 shows that in March of 2017, while Dan McLaughlin was still mayor, a new plan for this property went to the Planning Commission with Overton Enterprises, John Kelly as the owner of the property. This is the same Overton on the other secret insider deals. The Planning Commission unanimously approved this. It also shows in March of 2017, while Dan McLaughlin was still mayor, the property went to Development Services Committee and was approved unanimously, including votes by current trustees Fenton and Calandrello. Again, Overton Kelly was listed as the builder and the owner. Page 15 and 16 shows that this was tabled by Trustee Fenton and Trustee Guerra on the April 2nd, 2017 board meeting. I listened to the audio of that meeting. Former Mayor McLaughlin can be heard specifically asking Trustee Fenton if she was going to table, quote, the item. The election for mayor was the next day. The project didn't go to the full board until June 2017. By this time, we had a new mayor, and the vote was unanimous. Again, Overton Kelly was listed as the builder and the owner. Page 17 shows that Overton Kelly applied for a building permit, which was received, but construction has not yet started. The fact that John Kelly was listed as the owner on these documents seems to demonstrate an effort to hide ownership on yet another secret insider deal. This appears to indicate that the zoning in the permit was applied for somebody other than the actual owner. It also indicates that trustee Mike Carroll voted on the zoning for a property that his client owned, and he represented the buyer on the purchase. Former trustee Carroll was in on this insider business. If this is the case, it is clearly a conflict of interest, ethic violations with legal ramifications on several fronts. Based upon the public records reflecting no change in ownership since December of 2015, it seems pretty clear to me that the former mayor, Dan McLaughlin, was hiding his ownership on the Beacon Avenue property while going for zoning and permits in front of our Plan Commission, Development Services Committee, while he was still mayor. To verify that this wasn't just an oversight, I checked into Mayor McLaughlin's statement of economic interest because this property would legally have to be disclosed. For folks that aren't familiar with that, any elected official or candidate has to complete a document that you have to disclose by law. It's an annual form detailing any financial interest, ownership interest in accordance with the law, allowing full transparency to the general public. Page 18 and 19 shows Mayor McLaughlin's statement of economic interest for 2017, and page 21 and 22 show the candidate's statement of economic interest from this year, being a candidate. All of these statements claim NA to question number 5, which reads, list any entity in the nature if government action requested by any entity which has applied to a local unit of government in relation to which the person must file any license, franchise permit for annexation, zoning or rezoning of real estate during the preceding calendar year if the ownership interest of the person filing is in excess of $5,000 fair market value at the time of the filing, or if income and dividends were received by the person filing from the entity during the preceding calendar year. The fines for falsely completing a statement of economic interest range from a Class A misdemeanor, which can include fines and imprisonment. I want to remind everyone that this started with an offer, December of 2020, on a piece of property on Westwood from the same builder that filed now a seemingly false permit application for a property seemingly owned by the former mayor. Additionally, the lot in Westwood appears to be sold to the former mayor's neighbor, and it's built by the same builder with significant concessions. I found also that there's no evidence to prove that on village-owned properties that these were made available to the general public. You know, Real Estate 101 tells you the highest and best sale price comes when a property is offered and fully exposed to the open market, not just a select few. The village is required to auction items owned that are no longer needed or declared surplus. The village has auctioned off used wheelbarrows, barrels, and old file cabinets in an open market to the highest bidder, as is required by law. We have full transparency and exposure to the open market on these $100 items, but yet on properties worth thousands of dollars, these documents indicate some secret insider deals. This is not how taxpayer assets and real estate should be sold. I question, this is just little Cindy, real estate broker, looking at these things. What other things have gone on? What are we not aware of? Are there any other deals that are out there that we don't know about? This action really disgusts me. It violates the public trust, the trust of our planning commission, and the trust of the entire Board of Trustees, and begs further investigation. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Healy.
First of all, I've got a question for Dennis. If we recently approved a new ethics ordinance, with these allegations or with these actions that we've been described, would they be in violation of the new ethics ordinance?
Well, I guess I can't comment because I don't know the specific details of all of this, but I can tell you that under our current ethics ordinance, if a village official has any interest in any business or transaction that comes before the public body, that village official is required to disclose in writing prior to any vote on it that interest. And the failure to do that would be a violation of our current ethics ordinance.
And Dennis, would it be a violation of the previous ethics ordinance? Your recollection?
I'd have to look at it. I can't
Okay.
tell you off the top of my head.
Well, these actions are troubling, as described by Cindy. I mean, 143rd and Beacon, that's just a stone's throw from the Triangle, which a half a block away, where the former mayor was spending $64 million on a publicly funded housing project that would, raise property values in the whole neighborhood, theoretically. Cindy's documentation is profound. It appears to show that there were secret insider deals where the former mayor's friends and neighbors, the business partners, benefited substantially. Noticeably absent is the village. I don't hear myself saying that the village of Orland Park benefited substantially. On top of it, it's if the mayor hit. The former mayor owned a property that he hid his ownership from the village to benefit financially. This is in violation of as you say, about these disclosure laws. Are we surprised? Some of us yes, some of us no, some of us yes and no. This is Cook County. This is democratic machine politics. It's nothing new in these areas. Insider deals are one of the hallmarks of the Cook County machine politics. And just my other comment is perhaps the current board is too transparent, that we're letting people see too much information. I mean, maybe we should all put our properties in trust to hide our ownerships. I mean, I don't know. This is we've been accused of not being transparent enough, and I think we've been plenty transparent. And if everybody would follow the rules, there wouldn't be these problems. Thanks.
Mayor Peacock?
Trustee Dodge.
Just a couple of comments, I guess. So I appreciate the facts that were handed to us even as we spoke this evening. I would certainly like to see staff keep going in terms of finding additional documentation and making all of them public, as we've done in the past. Lots of interesting things were said tonight, some of them clearly perfectly chosen words. The people of Orland Park will make up their mind what all that means once we get to the facts, because what I heard tonight were a number of conclusions on facts that were chosen. My question, George, is for you and for the lawyers. Mr. Walsh, your firm represented us. If there was something untowards, what is that? So let's go, like I said before, all the way to Bright. If this board doesn't like previous policy decisions, so it goes in democracy. If something was done that was untowards or not beknownst to our lawyers, or our lawyers weren't paying attention, or whatever it is, go find it. Put it out there.
Mayor Pico?
Trustee Katsinas.
I do believe I found it. I do believe I found some action based on this documentation that anyone can get off the internet. You didn't have to go to a Realtor database. This is common, everyday websites, knowledge that you can go on and get. And there's been a lot of talk of throwing around the political. If uncovering potential illegal or certainly unethical behavior makes me political, so be it. I will continue to look out for the best interest of the Village of Orland Park and its residents. Thank you.
Mayor Peacock?
Trustee Dodge.
George, keep going on your fact discovery, and I'm now formally requesting a perspective from Klein, Thorpe, and Jenkins, who represented the village the entire time all of these things were happening. Were they or were they not illegal, as has been accused? Were they or were they not? What are the factual, legal ramifications of what's been, I think what the word in your business, Dennis, is alleged? To Trustee Katsinas's point, some pretty interesting details.
I can tell you that I knew nothing about this.
No, Dennis, I'm not asking you directly. I'm asking you on behalf of your firm. Your firm represented the village. If there was something untowards that happened then where lots of people didn't know certain things, get the facts on the table for all of Orland Park to understand and understand quickly. Put it out there.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Trustee Malani.
Trustee Calandrella, thanks again for clarification. That's why we're asking these questions, right? We don't have all the facts, and we don't have all the answers, and we need to put the puzzle together. So we need clear, concise facts. And after Cindy has been talking, I guess I have a couple other questions. I think Trustee Katsinas, you mentioned at least 2 or 3 different properties, right, during this time? How many of them were not listed on the spreadsheet? Was it 1 or was it 2 of the properties that weren't listed on the spreadsheet?
The transfer, the gift from the John Humphrey estate was not listed in the properties owned, or the properties, I'm sorry, that were sold, because it wasn't purchased, because it was gifted.
Okay.
However, that property that was gifted to Orland was then sold, so it didn't reflect. We had 2 categories we asked for. Properties Orland Park purchased and properties Orland Park sold. Of course, it wouldn't be under purchase, it was gifted, but it should have been under sold, and it was not.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. So either way, we had stuff that we either owned or sold at one point in time that we had no record of on the list. And we asked for all of the properties last meeting. So that leaves the question, how many other properties does the village own that, or did we own possibly, that we're not aware of? And, we've got a convenient map. Oh, excuse me, getting excited. We've got a convenient map in our conference room of all of the stuff that we have available for sale today. But we don't have a map of the properties that we own. And, why is this information so hard to find? And why did it come to where we are today to have to dig down into some of these details? And second of all, I hate to ask this question, as we've been talking about this the entire time. Why are we in the real estate business in the first place? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Fenton.
George, could you find out the Humphrey property that they're referring to? The Humphrey stuff was all gifted to the Historic Society. Was that property part of the Historic Society's property? And they sold it, and that's why she can't find the records of it? Could you find that out, please? And if you could also answer all my other questions that were from the last meeting, that'd be great, appreciated.
Any other comments?
Mayor Pico?
Trustee Katsinas.
Just wanted to make a point of reference here on page 2. It shows the probate of John Humphrey giving 3 parcels to the Village of Orland Park. 3 PIN numbers are reflected. 2 come back to the Humphrey home. The other one comes back to a vacant lot. The next page will show you where that vacant lot was then.
Okay. Well, clearly we have to dig in further. Any other comments? So I'll close this. I'll start with, I'm glad we put together an ethics commission that developed an ethics ordinance that would prevent or punish this type of behavior. This should never, ever happen again. Thankfully, the taxpayers of Orland Park are protected from this in the future. All of this is very disturbing on a number of fronts. And I think the stuff from 15 years ago, from all the documents I've seen, looks a lot different than what Trustee Katsinas just gave us clear documentation of right now. So the first thing is we have a permit approved for a multi-use building that was obtained by somebody other than the owner on Beacon. That's a problem. George, how do we handle this?
Ed, what would we do in this situation?
So, to remedy this in the future, we're requiring that the ownership information is included on the building permit application as well as in the disclaimer assigned that they have the owner's permission to assign for or apply for whatever work that is in the building permit.
Okay. How do we handle this situation? We have an open permit a few blocks from here from somebody who applied for it, not the owner. I don't want them building. How do we remedy that?
In this particular instance, or in any instance, we can contact the owner and make sure that the contractor has permission to apply on their
Could you
behalf.
please confirm with Mr. McLaughlin that he did in fact approve this application?
Sure.
Clearly, we have a problem with the process that would allow this to happen. I'm glad you have this disclaimer, but I think we also need to make sure that even when we have the disclaimer, if it's a permit on a vacant lot, and anything that goes to the Planning Commission, we need to confirm ownership.
And so as far as a petition for development approval, we always require documentation from the owner that they have the ability to apply for the entitlement approval. What I was referring to were adjustments to the building permit application.
Okay.
Occasionally, those are received without
this
the
went
owner.
But this went to zoning and committee without that. Or we had it and it wasn't given to, because according to the documentation, it wasn't given to the board. It was Overton and Kelly. And I remember this one in June when it came to the board, and we talked about this particular project, and Overton and Kelly were the developers. And the reason I remember it is because we've had subsequent complaints on this property about an empty foundation being a danger from the neighbors, and I believe we had to take action and do some remediation on that thing just to protect the public from it, because he wasn't actually building. So that's why I know that as far as development service was concerned, Overton and Kelly was the owner, and that doesn't appear to be the case based on the most recent tax bill. So that's a problem. So we need to fix, that's something we need to do immediately. Clearly we have a number of problems with our property purchase and sales process that need to be cleaned up. Maybe some of that's been cleaned up in the last 10, 12, 15 years, but we shouldn't be paying over appraised value for any property unless there's a really clear demonstrated public interest. And then any offer we receive for a property that's not on the market should require some kind of a public notice and ability, as Cindy said, to get our best price. Because we do occasionally get offers on properties that we own that aren't on the market. We should go out to the market if we don't have an appraisal or we haven't previously gone out to the market. Well, we're on those with Trustee Calandrello. I know you talk about the $1.5 million engineering. In Trustee Malani's defense, I didn't see anything in there about that project, so we wouldn't know anything about that, which goes back to we need all the information. All the information would help a lot. But regardless, we shouldn't be purchasing any property for future projects unless that property is the engineering is in place. I see our engineer nodding his head. It appears, based on this data, that the determinations were done after the remediation work. That in no world does that make sense. For example, our current process, we do the phase 2 comes after phase 1. Phase 2 is when we acquire those properties, and phase 1 identifies the need for that. So that's how we need to make sure that that applies to all our processes going forward. Maybe it already does, but we definitely need to make sure that that happens. Then, we clearly have some serious issues here that need to be addressed. I think some of this could be done in-house, but it's obviously very sensitive, and the village, I think, is better served with an independent look at these matters. So George, and I know we already have a lot of the documentation, so that should help speed things along. For the next meeting, I'd like at least 3 proposals from independent law firms to investigate these issues. These deliverables should include identify the rules or village ordinances, practices, and or procedures that were not followed. Identify any potential criminal actions for which a complaint should be filed. Identify all village property transactions, since clearly at least one was missed. It looks like we need to go back to at least 1987 to capture the John Humphrey donations, since it didn't show. And we have a board member who's been here for a long time who thinks that it went to the Historical Society when the documentation here shows differently. So we need to understand that. A summary of the actions taken between acquisition and sale of these properties, and then any recommended procedural changes to ensure complete transparency moving forward, and recommended procedural changes to ensure best practices are followed for property acquisitions and sales. We will vote on moving forward with this investigation at the next meeting, and any procedural changes that you find, we'll vote on as you bring them to us, but I would suggest cleaning that up as soon as possible. Sounds like we have something already in the works with Development Services. As Trustee Dodge says, all these documents should be put clearly on the website for full transparency. There's no place for insider transactions. There's no place for board members to hide ownership on something that's coming to the board. Absolutely should not happen. As I have since I've been here, I've tried to keep us moving forward. However, in this case, the public trust was clearly violated. The trust, as Trustee Cancina says, trust of the Planning Commission, if they weren't given who the real owner was violated. The trust of the board, I know I didn't know. I'm assuming that the rest of the board members here didn't know, and the committee members didn't know. All of our trust was violated. And the people deserve to know the truth behind all of this. So please, bring that to the next board meeting.
Mayor Peacock?
Trustee Dodge.
Certainly think it makes sense to get deeper on all this, and so thank you for bringing that up. The two central questions that I would like to have answered are, was there key bits of information that were not disclosed as the board back then and various boards were making decisions? That's an important issue to me. And then two, I certainly would like to hear what our then and current law firm have to say about it, in addition to what we may or may not do with an outside firm. Thank you.
You can add that to the list. Okay, I think that's our last agenda item. It's fun. Non-scheduled citizens and visitors, we have one, John Stalser. I saw him handed off to Clerk Mahalik, and he's not here. I don't see him. You don't see him either? Okay. Is there anybody else that would like to speak before we move on to board comments? Okay, board comments. Trustee Fenton.
Just want to once again show my support and congratulations to our police department for keeping this community safe for all these years. I've lived here since 1978, and I feel they've just been the best of the best, and they continue to show that by the statistics that they brought forth this evening. In light of all this other stuff, I would also like to reiterate Trustee Dodge and Mayor Peacock's comments about getting transparency in all of this stuff, and I do believe that sitting up here, all the trustees always look to not only staff but our legal department to guide us in the right direction. So it's important that all the documentation and recommendations that were made by the legal counsel at the time of all these transactions for however many years comes forth. Because I'm not a real estate agent, I'm not a financial person, I'm here representing the community, and all I can do is go by the recommendations of the people that make the big bucks. So I think all of that information still needs to be brought forth, which was not brought forth. And just remind everybody with the upcoming inauguration on Wednesday to stay safe, and hopefully the country will get back to where it needs to be, and everyone can go about their lives and live a safe life that they once enjoyed prior to the pandemic, for sure. And when it is your opportunity to get the vaccination, hopefully you'll go out and get the shot. And it may hurt, but maybe you'll get a lollipop. But it's for the best for yourself and for everyone around you, for your loved ones, for your neighbors, for your friends. So just hopefully everybody can stay safe.
Trustee Dodge.
Thank you, Mayor Peacock. Just 4 comments. Appreciative of what staff does, keep the village going together, police and our folks that, every day make a difference. So thank you to them broadly. I think it's pretty clear now that there is a new strain of COVID-19 coronavirus. And, apparently it's it's much more transmissible, unclear what its net effect is in terms of the impact of the disease. So just encourage everybody to continue to make the right choices for yourself and for your loved ones in terms of distancing and masking when in public or when social distancing is not, et cetera. So just it's time for more vigilance, while hopefully state and local governments, county in particular, get it right to distribute the vaccines that the federal government and the private sector provided in record time. So let's hope that they get it right. It distressed me to see what happened in D.C. recently. I'm obviously a big fan of the First Amendment. I'm not a big fan of people breaking the law and attacking the very foundations of our democracy. Let's hope that our country can move forward in some positive way. Let's see how that goes. And then finally, it's one of the things that we've talked about in the past, George, and I wouldn't mind if we kind of maybe dug up some of the old records. Previously, when I've brought up issues, or other members of the board have brought up, why are we meeting on Martin Luther King Day? And I remember, although you'll have to check the records, that there was implications about when we do or do not approve our payrolls and certain cadence of meetings that we have. I'd like at some future committee of the whole meeting for us to talk about, to align to some of these federal holidays, where a simple shift in a day could be something that we could easily do if there's not a legitimate and hard undue impact on our finance operations. Thank you, Mayor Pico.
Trustee Calandrella.
Just also want to echo everyone's sentiment about our police department. They are the best in the nation, and we know that, and we support them, and I know Joe knows that, and this board does it every day. I also do want to echo some more congratulations to the president-elect, and good luck after he won a fair and legal election. As we all know, if the president succeeds, we all succeed as Americans. So I look forward to that, and I'm also disturbed with what happened on the 6th, and hopefully we can put that behind us and come together as Americans. Thank you.
Trustee Healy.
I'd like to acknowledge today is the Martin Luther King's holiday, which in past years I didn't think about it that much or dismissed it or whatever, but over the last couple of years, I've taken it to heart more as I've done some reading and all that on the history of the country. Over the weekend, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal entitled "How the Left Hijacked Civil Rights." It was a wonderful article written by Robert Woodson, among others, and along with some help. And it's a wonderful history of some of the history of the black movement, not the black movement, but the black people, what they've experienced. And it's filled with hope for the future. And I think that if we all participated in finding out a little bit more about the black community's history and culture, the reasons why things end up the way they do, that it would be a better place. So I'd encourage you to make sure it's a nonfiction book, not just an opinion piece, but it is it is something to celebrate the country that gives opportunity to people, and it's wonderful to see when people take the initiative to take that opportunity. Thanks.
Trustee Katsinas.
And to quote the late, great Martin Luther King, he had a statement that said, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." It's particularly appropriate with House Bill 3653 and some of the information I uncovered. Thank you.
Trustee Malani.
Thank you. First, once again, thank you, Chief Mitchell. Thank you, Orland Park Police Department, and everything you do for us. I think that was more than covered here tonight. We continue to support you. We're behind you guys 100%. we'll do anything we can to help you in the fight. Upcoming events, we've got our Cinderella's Ball coming up February 6th. And also, we now have our Easter egg hunt scheduled for March 27th, so get that on your calendar. I know you guys were waiting to hear when that was coming out. But it's nice that we're continuing to have events for the kids, continuing to be out there, being safe, social distanced, and finding ways to continue to have events because everybody needs a break. Everybody needs to get out of the house every once in a while and have a little fun. So thank you, staff, for finding ways to do this. Thank you all for coming tonight, and see you at the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. So first, a shout out to Public Works. Great work again with the snow removal and keeping our streets clean, so doing a great job. Public Works has always, since I've been here, done a great job. As I've said, being mayor, two things, good policing and keep the streets clean when it snows. And those are two things I've never had to worry about. And this year, I think we've seen fewer complaints, at least I'm not hearing about them and I'm not seeing them on email. So, there's a couple, but comparatively less. So I think Public Works is doing a great job. And everything that I've seen, it looks fantastic. And I understand timing's not perfect. And I even heard from one of our trustees the other day said, well, your street's clean and mine's not clean yet. It's an 8-hour shift. So they can't get to everybody in the first hour. And we do rotate it from one place to the next so that everyone's not first. Someone's not first every time. So what is first every time is our main thoroughfares because those are the most important. But as far as our side streets, so just understand that, be understanding. It's going to take them 8 hours once they get going, and they get going at a time when the snow is done, we're done, and we don't have to come back out. So sometimes that means we have to let it accumulate first before we go out. Police, we can't say enough. We have already outstanding work last year. As long as I'm here, you will have my support, and I will have your backs, period. Martin Luther King said, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. He also said, the time is always right to do what is right. Today was a bit of a sad day for Orland Park. Listening to what I listened to was not pretty. However, as we have done since I've been here, is we've been as transparent as possible. We put things out on the website like we're doing here. It's all out there for you to see, because that's the way it should be. It's all on video, you can see it. It's all on audio, you can go back and watch it on video. That's the way it should be. So I'm proud of the transparency that we brought here, and I'm not afraid of any transparency. I don't think anyone here on this board is afraid of transparency. Let's continue with that, and that's good news for Orland Park, because that's good for the people. Because again, sunlight is the best disinfectant. So, thank you very much. Have a good night. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Fenton.
move to go in executive session for A, approval of minutes, B, appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific village employees, C, pending litigation against, affecting, or on behalf of the village when found by the board that such action is probable or imminent.
Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Fenton.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Dodge.
Aye.
Trustee Calandrella.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.